Just want to start by thanking Angie and Karina for inviting me, for CAOT for having me here. I am an invited guest today. I am a visitor on this land. So my name's Sheela Ivlev. I'm a Bengali American occupational therapist. I am a settler on Ramaytush Ohlone land, San Francisco. I just have to say, Angie was the one that helped me kind of put that piece together. I always realized like I don't really belong, but I also, experience racism, but I also have a lot of privilege. And when I realized I'm not exactly an immigrant, I am also a settler, it really kind of put things into perspective. So yes, I'm the founder of DisruptOT. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. It's an international grassroots organization dedicated to disrupting the status quo of occupational therapy. Really, that's where it started, but it's healthcare. We have all kinds of allied health professionals join us. We even have people who are not in healthcare join us, as well as students, of course. And we're really focused on challenging oppressive systems, and we do that by building community and highlighting global voices, providing free education and opportunities to students and practitioners all over the world. So I have the privilege of learning from, sharing with, and working with occupational therapy professionals and actually other healthcare professionals from all around the world. So today's topic is about truth and reconciliation. And I have to say, coming from the US, we aren't doing anything like that. We don't have any type of TRC task force or committee. That is not happening yet. And the little that I know about it, I think of truth and reconciliation to be about reparations, healing harm, and giving land back. I think that's the basics, and it's common sense to me, but it's not happening where I am. There was mention, I believe more than once, about the erasure of First Nations people. Well, in the US, it's even worse. If you can imagine, we have about 1% of the population that identifies as Native American or Alaska Native. And within occupational therapy, it's 0.2% of occupational therapists that are First Nations in the US. I don't even think you're collecting the data here, unfortunately, but I can imagine it's probably not that great here either. So we heard about white benevolence, we heard all these themes. I want to tie it to white supremacy because that is what it is. So white supremacy is a well-believed myth that there's an inherent superiority of white people, white culture, white ways of being and doing. So most of us, when we think of white supremacy, we're like, oh, it's the KKK, it's Nazis, it's lynching. Yeah, it is that, but it's a lot more than that. Honestly, it's like all of the examples that you heard today, and I'm gonna repeat them quickly. Just like Angie said, look at who's making the decisions today and who's facing the most inequities. And you can see that within the representation of occupational therapy leadership. Like literally when you look in the rooms of who are your leaders, it's white supremacy. It's the assumption that white is the standard and everyone else is the other, or like Sheela said, those people. In Canada, it's English and French as national languages on stolen land. Like that is just so weird to me. The US definitely is not better, but we don't actually have a national language. Yes, we have the expectation of English, which is white supremacy, but it's actually like policy here. It's also providing care. So those of us that are occupational therapy professionals, it's providing care through a white dominant lens, using white normed assessments and white standard interventions. So white supremacy is also the WFOT, recycling white occupational therapy and spreading it all around the world where white is not the norm or the majority, right? It's reminiscent of colonization. White supremacy is celebrating Western development, right? So what is a boomtown? Who was there before the boomtowns? Just kind of a nod to the event that's happening after this. White supremacy is it's unnamed in occupational therapy. Really, that norm of whiteness is unnamed in occupational therapy, and we cannot address it if we can't name it and if we're not willing to say it out loud, right? If we're scared to say it, if we're scared of repercussions, because there are repercussions. I also want to say that it's not just white people that are perpetuating white supremacy. People of color, particularly non-Indigenous and non-Black people like myself, we can perpetuate that myth of white supremacy, and we often do that. Yeah. So I'm keeping this really short. So I started DisruptOT because I did not feel like I belonged, and that's where I was able to find belonging by centering and highlighting the global majority, people of the global majority, and decentering whiteness so that we could improve lives and save lives, just like we've talked about why white supremacy is bad or white-centeredness is bad, right? And really to remove excuses because it's free and it's accessible and we're giving access to critical global education. And so I'm just gonna finish by asking everybody, what more will it take for us to see the most minoritized and the most harmed people as human and deserving of rights, freedoms, meaningful occupation, and joy? Angie and I wanted to talked about sharing our traumas, and we didn't have time for that. So I just want to ask again, how much suffering, pain, free labor, begging, research, white papers, panels, national reports, how much more of that do you need before we're going to take collective action? Thank you.